There is a problem with the next Straw Hat, and I don't see anybody talking about it. Now, whether you were currently caught up with One Piece or you were still an egghead, there is no doubt about the fact that there is a strong push for the audience to have another Straw Hat join the crew. Because there's always a push for the Straw Hats to bring on another member, because we just love our Straw Hat allies and we always want to have them around. But there are currently 3 people competing for the role of a Straw Hat member, and all of them kind of have an issue if they were to actually join, and they actually share the same issue. Now, the first of these is Loki. I mean, especially with recent developments, Loki is kind of keyed up by a lot of people to join the Straw Hats. I don't actually think that's going to happen though, but putting that aside for a minute, Loki would be by far and away one of the strongest members to ever join the Straw Hats. He is not only a giant, he's basically an ancient giant, meaning he's about the size of Oars or Little Oars Jr. So even if he never worked out a day in his life, his raw physical stats would be immense. But then you also take on the fact he's one of the strongest warriors in Elbaf. He has access to all 3 types of Haki, and he has a devil fruit that we still don't know what it fully is yet. He is incredibly powerful. The big issue if he was to join is that, aside from the logistics issues of him being on the ship, which might actually be funny to see, but you know, he would displace every other Straw Hat from their current position, with the only possible exceptions being both Luffy and maybe Zoro. Loki is that strong, he basically reshifts the whole balance of the crew. And while I love the idea of having Straw Hats that strong, it's kind of a bit late to bring on somebody so strong and not have them fully integrated. An issue that kind of comes up with our second pick, which is Yamato. Now, Yamato does have more history with the crew, simply because he was a major ally in Wano, and we've seen all of Wano. But, you know, Yamato is an ogre. They have incredibly strong, you know, physical capabilities. He has all 3 forms of Haki, and he has his dad's fighting style. That Thunder Bagua might not have been enough to take down Kaido, but I get the feeling it would do damage on just about anybody else. And then there's his mythical zone fruit, which is also very strong. And Yamato has expressed an interest in joining the Straw Hats, and the others have said they wanted him, but, you know, he had to stay behind in Wano to retrace Odin's steps. Which brings us to our last possible member who's going to maybe join and seems the most likely out of the 3 in the long run, and that is Vivi. Now, some people might say this is weird because Vivi's technically already a Straw Hat, kind of depends how you view her status, but, you know, she's currently out of Marie Joie and on the run, and she's always had a close relationship with the Straw Hats, and given the fact that Luffy does signal her towards the end of Egghead, it seems quite likely they will meet up again. But it is also worth noting she would be the only recruit listed here that doesn't offer any combat advantage, with the only possibility being her potential connection to an ancient weapon in the form of Pluton. But that's nebulous at best and definitely not explained right now, and it's not why the Straw Hats would want her anyway. But she is also wanted by the world government, so she does have a need to not be anywhere that they directly control. And this kind of highlights the big issue with all 3 of these characters, which is simply that none of them really have this burgeoning dream that would make them necessarily primed to join the Straw Hats. Vivi's dream has been completed in the form of the liberation of Alabasta from Crocodile's Baroque works, and that happened a long time ago. Yamato is retracing Odin's steps, but it's interesting because that's a dream that he has, but isn't like fully articulated to him specifically. And then we know so little about Loki, he doesn't even seem to have a dream, but that might come up more as we get into Elbaf. Nevertheless, without a dream, it would take significantly more to make these characters an invested part of the Straw Hats. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they couldn't be. Characters with, you know, vague or, you know, long-term achievement dreams are definitely members of the crew. You know, look at Sanji, look at Usopp, but the factor here is that we don't have another 1,000 chapters for even if all 3 of them joined to grow them into the crew. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see it, but we are at the end of the series. And all of this kind of leads me to believe that Luffy is the 10th Straw Hat. He doesn't count himself above his crew, he counts himself among them, and therefore is the next Straw Hat because he was already the first. That having been said, I don't think these characters are going to be excluded from the crew's adventures. I think they will all end up being members of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. In particular, Yamato is definitely going to reform his own version of the Beast Pirates, essentially, and you're going to have Loki join in some capacity, which, like I said, for those 2 alone is terrifying. And, you know, Vivi as a member of the crew probably won't be joining in any combat capacity, but, you know, still will be part of, like, logistics and leadership in some ways. If the Straw Hats do end up having to split up towards the end of the series, you know, to manage different sections of the final battle, I get the feeling Vivi would probably tag along with Nami, just based on their friendship and relationship, but it could go a number of ways. And that is the thing, is that they make great Grand Fleet members, but they don't really have all the material to become, you know, full-on Straw Hats, especially because we lack the time. That having been said, if you could picture more members actually joining the Straw Hat crew, who would you want to see join them? And leave that in the comments below. Go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel because we talk a lot about One Piece here.